All right, we got a lot of JJK questions today, starting with a really interesting one about Naoya, so spoilers beware. Okay, so to start us off today, shout out to Blue for asking me what path would Naoya Zenin have gone down as a vengeful cursed spirit had he killed Maki and Noritoshi Kamo? Basically, if he had won that fight, what was he going to do next? All right, so this is a really interesting what if because Curse Nayoa was a problem, okay? He was insanely fast and he had a domain expansion and he had essentially just been born, right? So just to think about like how much he could have grown beyond this point if he had been allowed to live is scary, right? And it's only because Maki is fully heavenly restricted that they were even able to beat him, right? Like anyone else had been in Maki's place right here, they would have all died. Or had she not awakened the moment she did, they would have all died, right? So yeah, definitely scary to think about him running around out there as well. But as for what he would have done, I think it largely depends on if he would be able to completely transform his appearance to look fully human. And we saw that he was able to make the top half of his body look fully human, basically after he awakened, if we can call it that. But then even beyond that, in his final moments, he was getting like monstrous again as he approached Maki. So that makes me think maybe he does have full control over his cursed body and appearance, meaning he could appear fully human if he wanted to, kind of like Mahito, right? And if that's the case, then I think he would have gone back to the Zenin clan and tried to rebuild it. Because before all this happened, we know that that's what he wanted. He wanted to be the clan head, right? And now that Maki had eviscerated the vast majority of them, there's obviously no one standing in his way. Not that they could anyway, with how strong Curse Nayoa would be. So I would imagine he wouldn't be too concerned with the other goings on in the world of JJK at this time, and he would just selfishly go do his thing, right? Take his, what he thought was his rightful place as clan head and basically build the Zenin back up from there, which is scary to think about because, nobody wants this guy in charge. I definitely feel like he would have made plans to completely overtake the other two clans as well, especially with Gojo being sealed at this point and the Kamo clan, not being up to much these days. But it's hard to extrapolate too far out with what he might accomplish because we know that, when the rest of the JJK sorcerers find out about what happened to Maki and Noritoshi Kamo, and when Gojo gets unsealed, then they might just come deal with him before the Sukuna fight. So, he obviously can't do anything to Gojo. So ultimately, I don't think too much changes because, he probably doesn't fly under the radar. But if he did, yeah, I think he takes the Zenin clan and basically tries to push out the rest of Jujutsu society and cement the place for himself. All right, next up, I got to give a big shout out to my boy Raphael for being the first one to ever shoot me a question on Facebook. My guy, thank you so much. And yes, I'm on Facebook. So for those of you that are on there, come show your boy some love. I think I'm getting close to 100 followers. I'm a pretty big deal over there. But as you can see here, he's talking about his headcanon theory that maybe the three great vengeful spirits of Japan were either like the originators of the three big clans or the clans made binding vows with them. And that's how like maybe these original hereditary techniques began. And yeah, I love both of these ideas. I put out a video talking about, I think it was maybe like a year ago. I'll see if I can find it. Talking about this theory that maybe the three great vengeful spirits are like the origins of these clans, because we know that Michizane, one of the three great vengeful spirits, is related to both Gojo and Kotsu. So I think it makes a lot of sense that they are tied to this history in one way or the other, whether or not they were members of the clans before they became vengeful cursed spirits, or like you said, some binding vows were made with them to get the techniques. I would love getting any lore on like the world building in that way. Like, how did the first curse techniques ever spring into being? Was it just a fact of this world, or was there some sort of ancient, deal made? So if I can remember, I'll link you that video, but I love these ideas. Next up, I got this question from Ghost Host, which essentially boils down to why was Yuji able to survive for so long without a heart, and yet Gojo seemingly died immediately after getting bisected? Like, this injury on paper isn't worse, or at least that much worse, than having your heart ripped out of your body for so long, right? So like, why couldn't he just RCT back from this? And realistically here, the answer is plot, right? Because certainly this injury isn't magnitudes worse than the heart one. Like, if you had enough cursed energy and like, you were still in the battle enough to perform RCT, I think you could. And I mean, we know that you could because Shoko puts this body back together and Akotsu pilots it, right? So it absolutely wasn't too far gone to just be brought back. So it's just plot. Like Gojo needed to exit the story here, and so some injury was going to have to kill him, and so this is what it was, right? But in a vacuum, hypothetically, a sorcerer that's got enough energy could heal from this, I think. Next up, I got this comment from Twinticles on my video I put out yesterday talking about Yuji and Gojo's relationship. So y'all can pause to read his entire thoughts there. But yeah, I agree with you. I definitely think one of the reasons Yuji is such an empathetic person in general, but especially toward Gojo, is because he can relate to that, right? A lot of empathetic people are that way. They've either gone through something or had a similar experience, and so they can relate to others when they see that they're going through that. Now, obviously, Yuji's isolation, if we can call it that, isn't the same as Gojo's. Like, they weren't in that circumstance for the same reason, but I do think largely before the events of Jujutsu Kaisen, Yuji was pretty alone, right? He basically only had his grandpa, which is something that he talks about, toward the end of the manga. So yeah, I think you're spot on with this. And then finally today, I got sent in this from Nico, who says that he was always under the impression that when Mahito discovered the true essence of his soul, that he ripped off his human face in order to show his true form, and that this symbolized how he was ditching the playful human routine that he had been doing and was now going to showcase who he truly is. Nico says that he gets a lot of people disagreeing with this, so he wanted my opinion. So I would be really curious to know which part of that people are disagreeing with you on, because I absolutely think that symbolism is there. Like Mahito, through hitting the black flashes, has discovered his true self, right? And so he is now shedding the past and wearing that. So I think that symbolism is absolutely there. But if they're disagreeing on whether or not he literally rips off his face or not, then I think this is kind of up in the air and it's whatever you want it to be, because in the manga, we kind of don't see that moment exactly happen. But what I will say is that right before this, Yuji slams Mahito in the face with a black flash. Because of that, Mahito's face in all of the subsequent panels before he transforms is like completely destroyed and covered in blood. And then the last time we see him before he transforms is just that darkened silhouette up there, and then boom, we get the reveal of the true form, right? So I think Mahito just transformed the same way he always does, the way he's able to, contort his body into whatever form he wants. But then we don't actually see the process. So I don't know why anyone would disagree or have a problem with you thinking that he ripped off the rest of his damaged face as just kind of like an aura farm moment, right? But what I will say is, if you think that this face, this monstrous face, was always there beneath it, and so then he was just ripping off the final charade, I don't think that happened, because I think that he just, I guess it's hard to think that Mahito even has a quote unquote true form. His form is just whatever he wants to shift it into, right? And it's only after hitting the black flashes that he realized oh, this is my peak, right? This is my prime. So I do think he transformed into this, as opposed to just finally ripping off the band-aid in terms of having been ashamed or anything like that, and that was always there underneath or something like that. So I hope that helps clear it up. But again, in terms of us not actually seeing the transition here, I don't know why anyone would have a problem with just thinking for aura or flavor that that's what he did. That's gonna do it for this one, y'all. Thank you guys so much for the support and the questions. I hope everyone's having a fantastic weekend, and I'll see you soon.